Mr. Boo.
Hey everybody, it is I, Mr. Boo, Entertainment Guru. Mr. Boo, Entertainment Guru right here on YouTube. And I'm a day late, and I'm a couple days late, and a couple dollars short, if you will, on this Halloween timeline review. We're going to go over the different timelines, the 4 different timelines of the Michael Myers Halloween franchise, if you will. Throw the thing up here, like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Do with what that you will, do with it whatever you will. And please bear with me that I know by the time this gets up, it's going to be like November 2nd, November 3rd. Guys, October got crazy, work got crazy, my life got crazy, the anxiety and depression got crazy. And you want to know what else is crazy? The night he came home. Halloween, baby. Michael Myers timeline review for the Halloween. Now, there are 4 separate timelines, and I'm not going to review each and every movie because I think I'm going to save that for next year's Halloween. That way I can go over and have a series of movies the week of Halloween, or movies. I can have a series of videos the week of Halloween going over these movies and just reviewing each and every one and then compiling it into its timeline and being like, okay, well, did anything change from last year? Within like what timeline is the best and what timeline is the absolute worst. So we're going to start with the Thorn timeline, as some people are calling it, or the Cult timeline. This one involves the original 2. So Halloween 1 back in the 1970s and Halloween 2, the one that takes place in the hospital with Jamie Lee Curtis. And then it goes on to obviously skip 3, Season of the Witch, because that one had nothing to do with any of these timelines. So Season of the Witch will never and not be mentioned after this. So we have the original one, we have the original sequel, part 2. Then it skips that Season of the Witch bullcrap and goes right on to 4, 5, and 6, which is the Curse of Michael Myers. Now, this timeline, after 1 and 2, it gets a little weird. It gets a little messed up, as like you see these little symbols, I believe on Michael's wrist. And I think in like the director's cuts or producer cuts or whatever they have, Dr. Loomis has one on him. And then like another doctor lady has it on him. This is trying to explain the fact that John Carpenter didn't really explain anything beyond Loomis saying he's pure evil. He's made of pure evil energy. That's how he survives the gunshots. That's how he survives the fall out the window. That's how he survives being, basically unalived and continues his streak of unaliving other people. It explains everything in one simple phrase. He's pure evil. Well, as the franchise grew and got bigger, and Season of the Witch, I believe, flopped. No more mentioning that one. But 4, 5, and 6 then began a trend. And like I said, 6 is Curse of Michael Myers. And this is the Cursed Thorn timeline we're talking about here. This one to me is not the worst. This one to me is probably second to worst. We'll get to the worst. But this one to me is second to the worst because at least they did try to explain it. And over on the side of things of Friday the 13th, they literally made things up as they went and literally destroyed the entire franchise from Takes Manhattan and Jason Goes to Hell and then Jason X. They just kind of did what they wanted. Even in the remake was terrible. But at least here there's no Myers dagger. At least here you're not taking someone who literally walks on the bottom of the lake, lives on the bottom of the lake, gets his powers presumably from the lake, being washed away in a sewer drain and turning into a little kid, and that's how he's defeated. I mean, okay, at least they came up with a reasonable explanation. There's a cult. There's this Thorn cult. Maybe he did somehow survive the first one. Then he kind of vanquished in the second one. And then 4, 5, and Curse of Michael Myers. Maybe they kept bringing him back because, I mean, we are at heart curious people. We are at heart simple-minded human beings that do follow trends. We are more followers than we are actually leaders most of the time. And you get wrapped up in cults. You get wrapped up in addiction. You get wrapped up in the fan frenzy. You just get wrapped up and lost in it. And true crime is one of those things that you definitely get wrapped up in. One of the reasons this video didn't come out on Halloween was because I got to go see Terrifier 3 on Halloween, and there was a person in there, a character, a college student who was really into the Miles County Clown, the Miles County Massacre, really into Art the Clown, really into true crime, and was pushing the limits while talking about him. And her boyfriend was like, it sounds like you want to date the guy. Like, it sounds like you think he's like, he needs to be worshipped. And that's where we're going with this timeline here. The Thorn cult timeline, maybe that's how Michael kept rising again and again and again. And maybe there's something with the curse. Maybe there's something with how the cult does its thing that plays into the weird aspect, which I didn't really like. I love Danielle Harris. She's been a great horror actress since she was a kid. Excuse me, but nothing taken away from Danielle Harris. Having the niece be like linked into Michael and seeing the things that are to come and kind of knowing where he's at and what he's doing and freaking her out, giving her PTSD by seeing through his eyes as he's unaliving everyone and anyone in his way. And she kind of took Laurie's place because like they were connected and he was coming for her. As bad as that is, as bad as like I don't like 4 or 5 or The Curse of Michael Myers, they are good movies. They are, I guess I can't say I don't like them. I do like them. I just don't love them. They are good movies for what they are, but basically the timeline explains after part 2, I believe part 1, maybe he did somehow survive and he crawled away or whatever. Part 2, he definitely doesn't survive, and then maybe the cult brings him back. That's kind of my film theory on this, and I probably will do a film theory sometime soon on Halloween and Michael Myers, because I've done one on Jason, I've done one on The Strangers. You can check those out here on my channel. But the Thorn cult timeline, 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, which was the curse of Michael Myers. You got the Revenge of Michael Myers in there too. It's not that bad, but it's not that great. So we'll list these at the end, but I think this one is second to the last. It does have the first 2 that involve him and Laurie, and then it goes on to be like him and his niece. And like I said, there's something spiritual, magical, cult-like, curse kind of thing going on where the niece is connected to Michael Myers. I don't know how, don't know why. I don't think it ever really gets too explained there, but I think it was the whole cult being involved in what they were being involved in and like worshiping Michael and bringing him back and just that whole ordeal. So not really that great of a timeline there, but it sits in there pretty well. It's not the worst. We're getting to that. And as we get to the next one I believe is the worst. The H2O timeline, the OG timeline, if you will, the one that should have been, I guess, it should have been there from the beginning, I guess, because you have 1, 2, and they're Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. And then you have H2O, which is, again, years later, 20 years after the babysitting incident and the hospital incident. You have Michael returning to then again go after Laurie Strode, again played by Jamie Lee Curtis. There is only one Jamie Lee Curtis and only one Laurie Strode. There's only one boogeyman, and they go at it again 20 years later at a college campus or whatever, what have you. It's not bad. It's better than Halloween Ends. Yeah, the actual encounters that they have in H2O are better than the ending encounter in Halloween Ends, and you can hate me for that, or you can just comment down below. What do you think? Do you think the H2O battles between her and Michael were better than Halloween Ends? Because I thought over on the side of like Terrifier and Friday the 13th, like Terrifier, Sienna and Art the Clown, they went rounds. They went rounds again in part 3. Part 2 and 3 of Terrifier, that's what I wanted to see at Halloween Ends. You have waited your entire life to face this man. And I don't care how old you are, eat your Activia, get pumped, and have a fight. Not this little 5-minute segment that we had, and then, oh, look, he's in a wood chipper. Again, Friday the 13th, Tommy Jarvis and Jason, dude, they went at it where the lake was on fire. It was surrounding the boat. Tommy gets pulled in. Tommy comes back. Tommy's got he's got the boat prop and he's chopping into Jason. Like that is what you want to see when you have a story like Laurie and Michael, Tommy and Jason, Sienna and Art the Clown, and H2O brought it, and Halloween Ends didn't. But the reason this one is the worst timeline is because it should have ended right there in a trilogy. It should have been 1, 2, and H2O. But lo and behold, the movie trope of every franchise ever is if it's making money, if it's selling, let's kill it. Because eventually you're going to run out of ideas and you are going to get your movies scrapped. There's going to be a flop. And that brings me to the last movie in this timeline, this H2O timeline, which would have been perfect if you just stopped at 3 movies. You added a 4th. Halloween Resurrection. Okay, Michael was gone. Laurie defeated him. You got this film crew coming in and shooting this, the Myers house is haunted kind of thing, like this haunted show, and Busta Rhymes is in it. You gotta have Busta Rhymes, and there's nothing against Busta Rhymes. I love Busta Rhymes. And if anyone could put up a convincing enough fight against Michael Myers, it's Busta Rhymes. You know how tall that man is? You know how fit that man actually looks still at his age now? Busta Rhymes put on another fight that was classic of Laurie and Michael in H2O, and what should have been in Halloween Ends. They unalived Laurie at the very beginning, and I don't think the fight was that great or anything. And she was literally helpless and hanging out a window, if I remember, and he just, with his signature blade, and I don't know, the movies. And then Michael Myers gets his butt kicked left, right, up, down, and into the next town by Busta Rhymes. It literally killed the franchise. If you will, if the franchise was a victim, it unalived them. It was a flop. It was bad. And we didn't see Michael Myers or Halloween again until this third timeline when Rob freaking Zombie brought it back. Now, I liked one half of this duo here. This had just Halloween and Halloween 2, and they were supposed to be remakes of the original 2 movies. Now, the first Halloween of Rob Zombie's timeline, I'm going to call it the zombie timeline, so I don't have to keep saying Rob, but the zombie timeline that he put together, recreating the first 2 Halloweens, the first one was actually decent, because you got to see the life and childhood of, what intentionally was supposed to be like a true crime story. Like, when you look at some of these documentaries, John Wayne Gacy had head trauma, an abusive father. Jeffrey Dahmer, his parents split up, thought each other took him, and the poor guy, who later grew into a monster, was left as a teenager dealing with his sexuality, dealing with his loneliness and depression all by himself and in this house, and ended up, unaliving a hitchhiker, and just never, ever came out of a downward spiral. There's usually always trauma, brain injury, abuse, something of that nature. Some of the words I can't use. Basically, maybe they were, involved in a chomo situation, if you know what that is. But it shows that he was in an abusive home. His mother was a professional dancer at an adult club. She was always gone, never home. The man she was with, I don't even presumably think was the father. It was some guy, stepfather, who was just filling the role. And, he was abusive to her. He was abusive to him. He drank all the time. And he was bullied at school. And it basically created Michael Myers. Michael Myers went off on his sister and the boyfriend, who were also not that great to him, because, hey, they didn't even take him trick-or-treating because they wanted to go up and they wanted to get on the good foot and do the bad thing. And Michael did a lot of bad things. First off to the bullies, then his stepfather. And he said, you know what? I've had it. Everyone has to go. And he never spoke a word for years, got locked up. And poor Danny Trejo, the one person in that mental hospital that was actually his friend, almost got through to him, didn't work. But there were some people trying to do some inappropriate acts on a woman patient, And that's when Michael actually snaps, and he didn't have it. He was like, fine, I'm out of here, whatever. Stop touching her. You guys are unalived. And then he unalived people on his way out, and we had the entire rest of it, which is Michael with his mask and his iconicness. Great movie. Just great movie. Brad Dourif was in it, which was amazing. He was the sheriff or whatever, and I mean that's the voice of Chucky. So you did have some people in there. Danny Trejo, Sherry Moon, obviously. You know, Rob's got to put his wife in there. I love that. But that was a good remake. So the Zombie Timeline was excellent until it got a sequel. Now the sequel again plays homage to and I gotta remember Danielle Harris came back in these ones, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Link in the description. Leave in the comment section down below if Danielle Harris was actually in the zombie franchise as well. The Zombie Timeline, excellent start, very bad sequel, and it takes place just like the second one. He gets into the hospital, he's chasing Laurie down. Everything seems all right. Everything seems like it's straightforward. Going to be another remake. It's going to be a fantastic remake like the first one. And the timeline dissolves. The timeline here, the sequel, it falls apart. The flashbacks with his mother and then the weird, like it got really weirdly kind of supernatural already. Kind of like it was falling into like the Colt Thorne timeline again, almost like maybe he wanted to make this movie, but he really had like different visions in his head about it. It didn't come through well on film. It didn't come through well at all in the sequel, and I did not like it. So as much as I do really love Zombies Halloween remake, I didn't like the sequel, so that timeline is not there. It's not the best. It's not the worst, but it's there. The H2O one, I believe, is the absolute worst, and that leads me to the best. And like I said, I'm going to label these at the end of the video here. What timeline is here and what timeline is there and what times are But the timeline I'm talking about is the H4O, the 40-year later timeline, the one that takes the original 2 and makes 3 more films to finish off a fine 5 film series. Say that 5 times real quick. A fine 5 film franchise timeline that sums everything up, and it is the best timeline minus the last movie, because the original, the OG number 2, the Halloween remake, Halloween Ends. Halloween Kills came first. And Halloween Kills, 2 thumbs way up. The remake of Halloween, thumbs way up. This is John Carpenter's timeline. This is his H4O. This is his original movie, the sequel to his original movie, his remake called Halloween, his one called Halloween Kills, and then there's Halloween Ends. But 4 out of the 5 makes for a great timeline. This is the best timeline for Halloween and Michael Myers. John Carpenter is the man. So you had the original 2, which were great. The remake was it was a remake, but it was like a requel. So it was a remake and sequel at the same time. Laurie knew Michael was coming back. Laurie was waiting for him. She was living out. Her whole house was protected, booby-trapped. It was like Home Alone for Michael. He came in trying to be the wet bandits and smear the red stuff everywhere instead of water. That's his wet bandit MO. And Laurie got him, trapped him, and furnace him, like completely. She's like, you're gonna need an urn, okay? You're gonna need to put Michael in an urn or spread him across some sort of, make him into some cat litter. Let the cats have him in the afterlife. But the fire trucks come along and they are putting him out and they're putting the house out, and he comes up and Halloween Kills begins. As he's taking out the firefighters, he's burned all the way down on half of his body. His mask looks terrific. This is the best one. This is the best one in my book of the timeline series here, the H4O or the John Carpenter series. It's great. So you have the first one, which was excellent. The second one, which was really good. The remake, which was excellent. Halloween Kills, which is beyond excellent. And then Halloween Ends. You basically sweep Michael Myers under the rug for some true crime enthusiast turned unaliver, serial unaliver, worshiping Michael, finds Michael hiding after he's been defeated in Halloween Kills. You just swept him under the mat. You just swept him under the rug. You just threw him outside like an unwanted puppy. And then you're like, okay, I can get behind this. Maybe it's going to play into maybe they're going to set it up to where if someone else takes over the franchise again, it's going to be like the Thorn curse, the curse timeline. And Michael's going to be in this, he's going to transfer something into this guy like Chucky into the doll and into the children and wherever Doombala lets him transfer his soul. No, he takes the kid out and then you're like, okay, I could still get behind this really bad movie if I just see a really good fight scene like Laurie throw down, Michael throw down. Maybe they take each other out. We've been waiting for this for so long. And then no one ate their Wheaties. No one ate their Activia pudding or yogurt. Nobody brought it. I mean, it was the weakest, slowest. It was the shortest. It was a bad fight scene. It was a bad ending. But without that, the original two OGs, the remake and Halloween Kills saves this franchise. Halloween Ends, I'm glad it ended it because it did to this timeline what Resurrection did to its timeline. So here we go. I've got it on this little receipt paper here. I'm going to tell you which timeline is the best down to the worst. So, well, no. Let's go from the worst to the best. So we have the worst timeline there is, which is the H2O timeline, because Halloween 1 and 2 were really good. H2O was all right. And it did have that aspect of like, okay, this should finish it. This is good. This is a pretty okay movie. And then Resurrection came in and killed the entire franchise of Halloween. So I have to label this the worst timeline. The H2O timeline is really bad because it literally got rid of Michael Myers and Halloween for years and years. Now, the Thorn Cult timeline is probably, like I said, the second to worst. Just because the cult and then the timeline and I like how it was just pure evil. Bringing a cult into it and possible black magic or voodoo or like something like that, necromancy, whatever, what have you will. And then like the niece seeing through his eyes and then being connected. It just lost me somewhere in there. It just lost me so bad in there that is the second to worst. Now, taking second place would be the Rob Zombie Halloween timeline. Because as bad and awful and dreadful as the second movie was, there were some prime top moments where Michael was doing what Michael does best. And the first remake of Halloween in the zombie film franchise, I loved it because it was long. It went into his childhood and how he became who he became. And again, he was brutal. And it was like a really good remake. And I have to say that saved the zombie franchise. Because the story in number 2 just got really weird, got really wacky, and lost me. But Michael was still doing what Michael does best in the good old Rob Zombie fashion. So that brings me to the best timeline of Halloween. Guys, we are talking about the original John Carpenter timeline, the H4O, where you got Halloween back from the 70s, Halloween 2, then the remake of Halloween, John Carpenter's remake, not zombies. Then you have Halloween Kills, which is like by far the best Halloween in my book. Comment down below what Halloween movie or what Halloween timeline is your favorite, because I'm going to end that timeline there because, Halloween Ends was really, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that 4 out of these 5 were good movies, this would be the worst timeline, because Halloween Ends almost, it's almost as bad as Resurrection. I think they're right. I mean, they're close. They're on top of each other. And if Resurrection would have just been a little better or non-existent at all, Halloween Ends would have killed the franchise for me. Halloween, Michael Myers, everything just gone, unalived, never to be seen again until someone else wants to pick up that mantle. But there you have it. The worst freaking timeline is the H2O timeline. The next worst is the Thorn Curse timeline. Then you have the one that wins the silver medal, the Rob Zombie timeline, and the OG John Carpenter H40 timeline is the best. But all the Halloweens are really nice. Michael Myers is a really good slasher. Everything is always worth a good watch, a good try, a good rewatch. Heck, every Halloween, why not watch some Michael Myers? Who cares what timeline he's in? He's still there. He's still doing his thing, and we all still love him, as we are all horror and fanatic slasher fans. I've been Mr. Boo Entertainment Guru, and I'm so sorry this is a couple days and a couple dollars shy, but I wasn't going to sit there and not go see Terrifier 3 on Halloween night. Like, come on, y'all. My wife, my child, and I, we watched it and we loved it, and that spoiler-free review will be the next video I do right here on this channel. So without further ado, I hope you had a great Halloween this year. Thanksgiving is coming. Christmas is coming, and we're going to enter another year already. Wow, it went so quick, didn't it? It went faster than Resurrection. People ran out of the theater. I've been Mr. Boo Entertainment Guru. Comment in the comment section down below. What timeline's your favorite? What Halloween movie is your favorite? Did you see Terrifier 3? How was your Halloween? Just comment. Talk to me. I will talk back to you. Mr. Boo Entertainment Guru. I gotta go now and do that spoiler-free review on my man Art the Clown and his Terrifier 3. I will have a Michael Myers film theory. Like, you know, it's a theory, so it's not like the truth or anything, coming sooner or later. And I will also be doing a film theory on Mr. Arthur the Clown, Art the Clown from Terrifier. I will not take up any more of your time. Mr. Boo Entertainment Guru, and as always, I'm out.